Hello and welcome back to another game devlog on the things I've been working on for a chunk of the week. I've got a couple things on my mind that I want to tackle for the next few days, and to kick things off for this devlog, I started working on the task that I can't talk anything specific about, the game's narrative. Creative writing comes a little slow to me, so it's for the best that I start this out as soon as possible. I see myself coming back for making revisions for a handful of sessions, especially for those times I come back and try to figure out what in the world past me was thinking back then. I'll be working on this aspect of the game from time to time, I just won't be mentioning it. Back on to parts that I can talk about with the game. I left off last video without finishing a pretty important mechanic. I quickly threw in the ability to open doors with the electrical activator. This hardly took me any time, since this ability to open doors relies on the activatable base script that the lights were using. The only sort of work that I need to do is to code in how the doors should react. This is placeholder, by the way, until the real door is modeled out, and then I can really get that animated. At this point in the day, it's been almost 30 minutes until the previous devlog gets uploaded, and I was wrapping up the thumbnail for it. At first, I was going to upload a link to the video with that still thumbnail to Twitter as the picture, but at the very last minute I changed my mind to instead make a quick supercut of the video as a GIF instead. I liked how that GIF turned out much better, and the extra rendering time meant I could focus on the Submarine's design, the other big task for my weekend. I figured I might as well spend some time out of the apartment, considering it's one of my days off from work and I'm in need of a little break from being behind my keyboard. I went off to the park to play some Pokemon and do a little bit of doodling. I wound up catching this little guy from a raid and got a few kilometers in of walking as well. The design of the submarine was taking shape too, much better than during Ludum Dare, but I was still having a little trouble with it. Apart from creative writing, creating 2D isn't one of my strong suits as well, but it still helps to have at least some sort of reference when I'm using Maya. But by the time I got home, I wasn't feeling that great. A little from being tired from a small workout, but mostly because my allergies started kicking my butt. I don't know what I'm allergic to specifically, but I thought I got away from it at the beginning of the month. So instead of working while being distracted by my nose, I decided just to relax and play some Monster Hunter with Alex to end off the night. I started off my morning getting started on the 3D blockout of the submarine. One of the things I consider when modeling without a concept art, which is most of the time to be honest, is how much of the final piece's focus should be placed between the model's silhouette or on the texture's intensity. With the submarine being heavily post-processed to appear underwater and the age of the material being fairly new, I chose to favor a complex silhouette. Sadly, I feel like I can't catch a break this devlog session as my mouse reaches new levels of busted. For the past 2 to 3 months, there's been a good chance when I click and drag that it releases and clicks halfway through again. This is terrible for modeling, since I basically can't marquee select without using a ton of Control Z. I can't quite get in the zone with wasting so much of that time. Eventually I had to stop working. Although I got a few test shapes out, I wasn't too happy with how it was going. Instead, I started up on the dialogue system for when the ship's AI talks to the player. In this case, the AI is more of a communication method from the game to the player than an interactable entity. Thankfully, coding doesn't use the mouse too much, so I can get a moment to finally focus. I like to have a degree of randomness in my work, and I want to work on that with the AI. Now the level saver can record the first time when a dialogue's been played. With that, I can get a one-off dialogue that never plays again, or an event that plays a unique dialogue the very first time, and then a chance to play a dialogue from an array the next time it happens. That latter bit sounds useful to me when equipping an item, so I can put in a little more blabber the very first time around. I got the one-off dialogues working, but I'll need to call it a night for now since I have my day job in the morning. Well, on the upside and the downside, I got called out of work today since the truck wasn't that big, but I got a Saturday shift to make up for it, so I better make my morning count while I've got it for now. Before I started anything else, I resumed from yesterday with the dialogue system to finish it up, and everything went smoothly. Now before I can go back to working on my submarine, I'd like to work on the condition of my mouse. Luckily, Alex has some tiny screwdrivers, so the plan A was to just bring them over to her and see if some dirt has made its way inside. I've had the mouse for about 4 or 5 years, so there's a chance it's an easy fix, hopefully. But it wasn't. Turns out Alex's smallest screwdrivers were still too big to use, and the screws just weren't budging. So time to bite the bullet for plan B. It took a little while to set things up as close to the old mouse as I could, but on the bright side, I get a few extra macro keys I can use. In Maya, I've tried to use the spacebar menu to navigate, but holding down the button with my left thumb always feels weird to me. But now I can use an extra mouse button instead, so I want to try to get used to that. Now I'm in pretty high spirits at this point, and I'm feeling a little bold. Although I spent quite a bit of time on this shape, I haven't improved on the design in a way that feels natural to me. So I tried something new, something spherical. Now I can reuse some of the parts that I was working with, like the propellers. I can roll with this, but not for too much longer since it's getting a little late and I have work in the morning, hopefully this time. After work and a quick nap, I took the base geometry and made 2 duplicates of it, one for the low poly and one for the high poly. Starting off with the low poly, things are pretty basic, trying to maintain the bottle silhouette while trying to lower the poly count as much as possible. But for a round shape, it's going to be on the higher poly count anyway, since I might want closer up shots. If I really need performance, I'll consider using an LOD, but not for right now. The propeller fans are also at weird sheared angles, so I kept most of their polys intact as well, so there's nothing strange that happens with them in Unity. Onto the high poly versions, or pretty much just the paneling versions, I use a somewhat risky move of extruding faces inward and then extruding them out again so then they're flush. I call it risky because if you're not careful with it and you merge these vertices on accident, you're going to end up with a lot of non-manifold geometry, and you do not want to deal with that because it's not that fun to clean up. Especially be careful if you plan to mirror the geometry over to save some time. That's my common way of messing this up, and I still catch myself doing that from time to time. For this model, I'm going with 4 materials. It's slightly overkill, but I've got my reasons. One texture set is for the body of the submarine, while one is for the lens and inner components. I'd like the glass to have some nice detailed properties to it, so I'd like to bump up the resolution of that for any close-ups I have. I'm already thinking of the main menu for one of those shots. Then one texture set for the equipment that attaches onto the submarine. I'm not exactly sure how many there will be in the end, but at least I'll be prepared for it with the texture space. Plus, I'd only need to rebake this texture set when I'm working with this. Finally, one last material for the LED screen that I'll likely control with a shader graph for the robot's expressions. Not gonna lie, I'm just taking this idea from the robot I got to texture from that art jam I mentioned in the last video. What can I say? I can't just pass up this nice idea. I'm going to be honest with you too on this. I wasn't thinking about the art swap robot's spherical head when I was making the submarine, more so thinking about those futuristic submarines with their glass domes so you can see everything underwater around you. I thought it was pretty cool. With that last manual task finished up, I might as well do the waiting game that is baking and call it at that for this devlog. Compared to the other designs, I'm way happier with this one. Oh, and one last thing before I end this video, I'm thinking of naming the game Lost at Sea. I'm having a pretty good feeling with it. Now for real this time, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good week, and hopefully my allergies clear up for the next one. See you later.